Old says at one point, these are my older notes, it's the mid-watch that's the dread watch. The light is mine. And throughout the movie, Old is the one that's always up all throughout the night while Young gets to sleep, at like a normal time. So there is maybe some added weight and problems with being the person at the top guarding the light that Young doesn't even know how to handle yet because he's never learned. But again, that might be I don't know. I don't want to stretch too far with the light metaphor and all that, but I mean, he doesn't. He asks him several times, when can I look? When can I do that part and work in the light? And the guidebook says we're supposed to change off every other night, or something to that effect. And he says, no, the light. I'm just gonna. Maybe if he had have introduced him to that task slowly and in a competent fashion, none of that would have happened. At the same time, I also, it's kind of weird to have in the guidebook to say you're supposed to do it every other night because everyone's sleep schedule would be completely ruined by that, I would think. But anyway, I don't know. Who knows? I don't know the specifics of lighthouse work, but someday I might. And if I do, hopefully the island that I live on will have Wi-Fi and I can do a podcast and explain it to everybody.
You can let us know.
I will. And I will if there's a guidebook.
I think that's an interesting thing, though, is to see that essentially the young character does seem to be too quick in taking over from the old character, but the old character may be too greedy with his own position. And whether it is that he has some type of special wisdom about the light, blah, 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 or that it's truly too difficult to stay up and deal with the light. We don't know exactly why he does that, but it does seem that he has grown attached to that role.
Certainly.
And he does say,
he said he's married to the light or something.
I was just gonna say, yeah, and he speaks to the light as if it was his partner or something.
Sure.
And so that's kind of an interesting way to understand again that Greek concept of the powerful being unwilling to relinquish that power, and it can be something that one gets attached to and is unwilling to gracefully pass to the next generation. And if that is so, and I mean, that makes me think of when I look at, a lot of the societal issues in American, in the US, you see a lot of what comes out of a lot of the strife comes out of the path having been altered for people. It's not as easy for the younger generations to achieve the quality of life that their parents and grandparents did. The cost of living is more expensive. The cost of getting education is more expensive. And so you have things like this that are that in a way the previous generations have orchestrated, and it makes the path to pass the light much harder. And so doing that's kind of the same issue where you see that if you are not creating a fairly smooth, it doesn't have to be very smooth, because I think that animosity between the generations is just something that cannot be totally done away with, and perhaps it's not supposed to be done away with. But I think that if you become too attached to that position of power that you maybe have rightfully gained, you risk having it taken from you brutally. And that's essentially what happens to the old character, is that he is so unwilling to give up the light that he loses his life for it, essentially. Perhaps if he had given it to the young character in a more tempered way, he would not have died. So that's an interesting way to think of why, there is a passing of power. I think it's so interesting because maybe people get caught up on like, oh, it's this identity, or oh, it's this type of politics or whatever. Every generation accrues power through their resources, through their positions. That's what life does to you. As you go through life, you accrue more power and wealth, essentially. I mean, if you're able to. Some people don't. But for the most part, having more time on Earth gives you a better chance to accrue more power and resources. And so there is a passing off there that has to happen. And if the bridge is essentially cut after you pass over it, you're going to have that natural passing that needs to happen becomes instead a kind of battle, and that is, I think, where there's a risk in
Titanomachy.
In Titanomachy.